everyday life. So I'll be discussing Braille, how it can be used, and in ways in which it's helpful. So Braille is an array of 6 dots in 2 lines. Each line consists of 3 dots and they're next to each other. Braille is found on medicine packets, on the back of medicine packets. It's also found in some countries such as the US on some food products. It's also seen on buttons on lifts. In Braille there are many different ways these dots are arranged to make up different letters, words, abbreviation of words, numbers, maths symbols, science symbols, tweet symbols, and even musical notes and symbols. There's also punctuation, which obviously is in general, and the type of Braille that it is called Unified English Braille. So any country that uses its own language and then English as a second language uses the same Braille. So it's quite useful if, say, someone who's visually impaired or blind goes to another country and needs to use Braille, because it will still be the same Braille, just different words in Braille. So there's different ways to do Braille. There is doing it on Braille paper using the Perkins Brailler, but also you can do it electronically, either using a Braille note or the Orbit Braille reader. So an Orbit Braille reader links up to either a computer or an iPad via Bluetooth or a connection cable, and it allows you to either type or read Braille on the Orbit reader and it be in font on the screen. But obviously if you don't want to link it, you just have books on an SD card. Also then there's a Braille note, and the best way to kind of describe that is as a Braille laptop almost, because you can do time, do maths, do documents, play games, everything kind of on there. And you do Braille on them and then send it to another computer. It'll actually come up in font on the computer when you've done it in Braille on the machines. But then also there's, for practicing on, there's Braille paper, which is almost like embossing paper because it's thicker and almost like cardboard, but not, it's still paper because it has to punch the Braille dots into it. So this is the type of paper that you can do Braille on. Obviously, as you can see, I've done a little bit of Braille on it already, but it is a lot thicker than normal paper because you have to punch these Braille dots into it, and then that can be put into the Perkins Brailler and taken out. Or the Perkins Brailler is like an old-fashioned typewriter with 3 keys either side for the 6 dots, a space bar in the middle, a backspace bar, and the equivalent to an enter bar. However, in Braille, it doesn't work like backspace. The way to effectively erase something you've made a mistake on, you do all the dots together several times, because the 6 dots on its own is one of the contractions that you can do in Braille, so it gets confusing for someone who's reading it. Whereas if you do say 5 or 6 of them, it's more noticeable for someone to see if it's a correction instead. The main uses are on lifts, where it's on the numbers are on the buttons inside the lift, and obviously someone who can't see can feel them to press which floor they want to go to. And then it's also on the back of medicine packets, so packet of paracetamol or some other kind of medical related thing. Has it on for either the name of it or the instructions of it. On here, it's got Braille on here, which I think is either the name of it or it's the instructions of it. So it is quite helpful, but it's not on a huge amount of things. So hopefully in the future it could be put onto more things to make things more accessible. But for now, that's all it's kind of on. And like I said, I think in the US they have it on Braille. They have Braille on the food packaging, and maybe some other places have it as well. But it's not that widely used, which is a bit of a shame. Like, there's not too many kind of signs and stuff that have Braille on. It's very hard to explain. We've got some clips in this video of me reading and writing on the Perkins Braille, obviously in Braille, just to give an example of kind of what it's like using one, and a bit of an example of reading it as well, because reading Braille is very different to reading normal font, because obviously you have to feel it in a certain way to be able to interpret it. And in terms of, say if you're doing like you're beginning with Braille, you tend to do 2 spaces rather than 1 space in between the lines of Braille, so it's more easy to distinguish, because obviously young people who are starting with Braille or adults who are starting on Braille would find it quite hard to distinguish between, so it's double spaced to make it easier, and then when you get more experienced with it, you have only a single space in between the lines so that you can read it and it doesn't take up quite as much paper, so you can get more on it. So you could get more of a book on it, or you could get you could type more information onto a page, which is equivalent to, say, a Word doc page but on Braille. So that's kind of everything on Braille. Obviously if I've missed anything, I could potentially do a second video on it in the future. Obviously if you like this, obviously like it and subscribe. Also you could share it so that other people can be aware of Braille and the other things that I put onto this YouTube channel about visual impairment. And feel free to check out my Instagram page. It's called Emmy's VIP Life, which obviously is the name of this YouTube channel, which obviously is a representation of a visually impaired person. So thank you for watching and taking your time to listen to what I have to say, and yeah, bye.